Hi.
Good morning, Leah.
Good morning. This is loud.
Sorry, didn't mean to shout at you.
No, because I have this setup at home that I never try.
Good morning, Leah.
This is loud.
Sorry, didn't mean to shout at you.
And
You look like it's very cold in your house.
no, actually, it's hot. Like I just put the warming up, and I expect it to be like colder. Instead, it's okay. I think that also people are putting the heating on, so it's actually okay. But I like to have jumpers.
Like Leah. I gave in. I put on the heating yesterday.
Ah, yes.
Just a tiny bit, but it's on. It's too cold now.
Yeah, just that sensation that it's a little bit. So we have today, I forgot. Marie, no. Who's presenting?
Presenting?
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
No, you know.
Well, I have a paper, but I don't know if anyone else has. Let's see. Good morning, Elisa. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi.
The voices from the off. Does any of you have a paper today?
Why not?
Oops, sorry.
Sorry, no, I guess. No worries, no worries. I think we might be quite an intimate group today because it is holidays in most countries, I think, at the moment. In Europe anyways. So yeah, I think it's just us today. So
I think I want to say I think next Monday it's like national holiday everywhere.
That's good to know. Okay, so we need to look into that. But it's definitely like autumn break this week and next week. Anyways, sorry, is this too noisy? Do I need to remove him?
We can hear something, but no, it's okay.
He decided it's playtime now. Right. So there's more people dropping in. We know this one. Hi, good morning, Valentina.
Good morning.
Hi.
Do you have a paper today?
No.
No. Okay. Hang on. Do you want to quickly introduce the rules of the game and I get rid of him?
Of course. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Neuroccino. The rules of the games are if you have a paper that you read during the week and it gets you interested, come and share it with us and we can quickly discuss it and have a chat about it. So back to you.
Thank you. Great. So I thought I present it's not really a paper, it's a comment, but I thought it was very timely and it got me thinking. Because I actually had this conversation recently with Michelle where we talked about reading historical papers and current papers and how most historical papers are a lot more pleasurable to read because of the way they are written. Okay, so current papers are often hiding behind convoluted and very dry writing, which makes it hard and more of a task to read it rather than enjoyable reading. And this is where this lovely commentary comes in. Let me share my screen with you. That's type 2, full screen. And I'm going to use this one so we can actually zoom in. So
I like the title.
Me too, and they actually come back to it in the comment later on why this title, and I have to say I fully agree with the authors here. So basically the bottom line is that the argument is we should use storytelling elements in our scientific writing to convey the ideas, messages, the narrative of the theories, and make the ideas more understandable, but also make the information stick with the reader a lot better. And what is nice, they don't only go through the paper and say, look, guys, you're doing this all wrong, but they actually give hands-on examples of how to incorporate storytelling components into our scientific writing, which I think is quite beautiful. Now, it's a short read, so I really, really encourage you to have a look at the paper later. But just briefly, what I wanted to highlight, let me see, I printed it, but it's all blurry in the print. Here we go. So for example, it's on page 2. Here we go. So I'm now talking about this paragraph here, where they draw the comparison between using the storytelling elements like the location and time, and what that would be in the scientific writing. So the location and the time would be the study's premises. The events and the arising action would be the hypothesis that we want to test. And then the tension and the stakes, which could be alternative explanations. And then the resolution and the change, which is the conclusions and interpretations. And the epilogue would be the future directions of the research. And you can see how this actually nicely fits together and still follows the scientific writing logic. It's just the way we present our writing that would make it a lot more understandable and pleasurable to read. And I have to say, I do disagree with the authors on one point, and that is that they argue towards the end of this comment that every junior scientist or early career researcher should get training in storytelling, which I do agree with that part, but I think actually everyone who is a science writer should get training in storytelling, because a big majority of what we do on a daily basis is to write down our ideas, either for publications or for grants. We always need to bring our ideas out there in the world and need to convince others why they are good. So I think we should all have a storytelling training and make an effort to make our writing a lot more better using a narrative framework. Now, personally, I initially grew up in Germany with the academic writing German style, which means very long convoluted sentences that could easily span half a page, and that's not even exaggerated. And then I moved to the UK and I met this entirely new scientific dogma of you need to write in a way that even your gran can understand what you're saying, which is completely different worlds. And it's very hard to break a complex idea down to its very elements. So you can explain it to your gran or bring it back to a narrative writing style. But it's very worth doing it. And I actually started using my gran, who's also watching Neuroccino every week. Hello. And I try to run, especially public engagement talks, I run them past her to see if the narrative, if the story of my talk actually works. And only when she understands it and likes it, these talks go out. So they're all granny proved if you ever hear me speak in the public. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share about the comment for now, but do go away and read it. It's also very, very beautifully written, I have to say. So they really not only give you practical tips on how to do it, they also show you how to do it nicely. So yeah, that's the paper for this week. I'm happy to discuss it, get your experiences, your take on it. Should we still try to write very complex to show how smart we are? Should we try to bring our smarts out in a different and narrative style? Here you go, over to you guys. Any questions, comments, let me know. Oh, we just lost Valentina, dropped out. Ah, there you are. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I raised my hand just not to overlap with Leah and the other guests. I might say I agree with you on the need to teach storytelling, not only to junior scientists. Because in my experience, I read reviews from, I guess, senior reviewers and senior scientists who ask for a very specific structure of the introduction or a very specific structure of the discussion, which is constrained by the very strict rules of scientific writing, and this is not like their comments were this is not written in a more formal way as we expected to, or I don't know, there's a review reference missing, and references are really, they cut the storytelling. I think if there are too many, too much, if you refer too much to other people's works, and yeah, this is my comment. I think we all should get a bit of reshaping our conception of paper structure.
So hang on, sorry, I'm multitasking at the same time, so I may not have gotten this right. I'm trying to share the link for everyone over on YouTube. So you're saying we should reference less?
Yeah, I think maybe sometimes too many references could stop the flow of the paper. I'm not saying don't put references. Always put references in your sentences. You know how I'm an Odyssey on references, but maybe too many, as we were having a chat with Leah, too many might block the flow of the paper. Constantly references to previous work and adding too many references just for please everyone.
Especially your reviewers.
Exactly.
Personally, I have to say I don't mind the references, and I'm in favor of the more the merrier. But I can literally just block them out in the reading, so they don't really interfere with the content for me. But I appreciate that's different for different people. Is there a reference style that is easier for you to read? Like, do you like the classical author year or the numbers, or does it make
the problem is that I love references, so I love when it's written, then the names of the authors in the text, in the main text. But sometimes I just go nuts and go back to the sentence. If there's a really big bit of references, I just get lost.
Okay, bear that in mind next time.
Yeah, I think that I can jump in. I think that it's also part of the storytelling. So if you have to follow all the flow, sometimes I start to read an article and I'm also interested to look to the reference. But then if they are like a lot, then I get stuck at the beginning because I need to, I need to know so much background. I have to look to these articles. So maybe if you do as an author, if you do a selection of the references, it's also easier for the reader that is not lost in a flow of 1,000 of references. Oh my God, I never read all of those. Instead, if you like select a few of the articles, and of course, there is also the debate that you have to cite everyone, but it's, I think, in line, this comment with the storytelling that it's not just a scientific piece of work, but it's also a way to communicate something, and so maybe you have to do a selection of the references for to make it more readable. Just for that.
They also comment about referencing in the comment, so do have a look. Chris.
Yeah, well, just about the references, It's a little bit dangerous to not not have enough references. Like, yeah, it might for some people it might be difficult to follow in the paper, but I feel that when I'm reviewing papers, like it becomes a reflex to when you see a claim and you don't have references or enough. Like if you have a big claim, you might actually think one reference is not enough because that's a big claim. That's something that I thought was, I thought the opposite was the consensus. So if you give one reference, it's not enough. So I think constraining the references is maybe dangerous, but maybe there would be a way to present it so it doesn't impair the flow of the paper. So yeah, there's that. But also about the writing, I totally agree with the comment. Some papers are super tedious to read, and I think it's really a problem to share the science, because first, even researchers are bored reading some papers. I mean, probably some of the, well, I guess it's difficult to write a paper that's like exciting about all the science facts. I mean, you have to include, you have a lot of constraints in the scientific paper. That's the problem. But at the same time, I agree that there is a lot of work to do to make it much more interesting. And maybe the education would be a solution. But I think one problem is the expectation as well, because we feel that we, especially as young researchers, we feel that we are expected to have this structure, the same paragraphs, exactly what you have to say every time. But in my opinion, it doesn't fit every study. And I think the constraints we have, and also the constraints we put on ourselves, might be a bigger problem for the interest of the papers. I don't know what you think about it.
So it's quite interesting you come back on the on the scaffold of a scientific paper, I think, because that's also in the comment actually, where they say that they're not claiming we need to completely change the scaffold of a scientific article, but the way we fill the scaffold with the story, that should be changed. And I think that there is room for us to do that. We can still stick to like the same headings and the same overall structure, but the way we take the reader with us on that journey of where the idea comes from, how we decided to test it in that particular way, and what we found and what that means, that's a story we can spin and make a lot more enjoyable to write and to read, which will be a win-win, right?
Just even the scaffold of the papers, I don't know if it works that well, because we can see some journals, they change the way they present the paper. So like, for example, it's communications in biology, the methods are at the end, compared to the usual introduction, methods, result, discussion. So there might be a problem here. I'm not saying that there would be a better scaffold for all the papers. I think what I mean is more that some papers are not adapted to some structures, so we should just not even try for these papers. But for example, a method paper should be presented in a very different way from a clinical study. But
they usually are, no?
Well, I mean,
as you
have
say, a
more
methods paper, if you send it to a methods journal, then the weighting between the theory and, I mean, methods.
Yeah, the size of the methods are different, but the size of the different sections are different. but the structure is not fundamentally different. And I think there could be some evolution on that could help writing and reading, in my opinion.
Chris is on a mission to change the publication process all around.
Yes.
Leah, you had a comment.
Yeah, let me load this hand. And yeah, so I think I'm really happy that you present this paper, because I think that sometimes usually we don't give enough attention in the writing process. And I think for me, like also one of the biggest problem is that this process required a lot of time. Because to do it well, it requires like thinking. It's not just you write down the methods. It requires like how to present, which were the protagonists, all this parallelism that I quickly saw in the commentary. So like I love to do that. I love to have a good writing, but it required practice, training, as maybe they suggest in the paper about the storytelling line. And also if you came from I studied physics, and in physics you don't really practice. Before I did classical studies, so I have like a background in literature that helped me a lot. But I mean, the training is important, but the point is that so if it's required for publication, then you have also to provide the training and also the time to the researcher to do that, because if you ask to have the perfect software, so it's a lot to ask. So I really love the writing and also reading good papers, but it's true that it requires a lot of work. So it's important to provide attention to this point, as you are doing with this paper, I think.
But one could make an argument that if we invest the time now in training the scientific community in how to write better, we actually save time down the line, because reading a paper will be enjoyable. And you actually understand what you're reading, rather than having to go through it multiple times to deconvolute the sentences and really grasp what the authors are trying to say. So it would be a lot of time potentially that is front loaded, but we would gain a lot, I think, in being more understandable.
No, I totally agree. Is that you have to invest in that direction. And also, like, I think that an article should be an article for everyone. So like to embrace the majority of the community. So as we were saying also so there will be like as a good book, different levels of reading. So you can read it like several times and have like a different perspective. So also a person that is not in the field should be able to read it and at least grasp something or the general idea. Then another person with a more specific background can go more in detail. So that is usually how books are written, I think. And so like for I think that yes, it's true that you have a specialized audience because you choose the journal and everything, but it's also true that if science should be for everyone, you should provide at least one level that everyone can grasp, and then you can go in the different level.
Well, that's an argument that was made a couple of years ago as well, because most of research is publicly funded. So that argument came about with the open access and everyone should have access to papers. But then the next layer is, even if the general public has access to those papers, what good is it if even we as experts struggle to understand them? Like the access itself doesn't solve the problem. The accessibility of the information is what is also needed. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, a big example are in these days, Novax people who gets paper from here and then read and interpret the papers as they like, because maybe they didn't grasp the essence, or the paper wasn't written that well, that accessible to a general public, because they didn't expect it to be a hot topic in the public arena, or the correlation of vaccination with autism. They all refer to very old papers that have been falsified, or and or to more recent papers that don't say that. But still, they grasp what they want, because maybe we should start writing with that in mind.
So as a general interest question, did you come across any good practice and how to learn how to write in science? Or is it all a matter of trial and error? You write something, someone gives you feedback, and you do it again until at some point either of you gives up or it's actually good enough to go out?
During my PhD, I had a course at university with there was I did in Italy. So as you were also commenting, it's different to shift from a language style to another language style. So the focus was there was like a native English speaker, and she was trained in storytelling actually. And she was trained us in this like 3-month course once a week to do exercise about how to write scientific papers. So it was really a specific course. It was mostly about the language style. So one suggestion that I really like, that you have to be precise. So you don't have like to use words that are too general. Like when you say like greater or higher, you have to specify the what you're referring on, or the link between the sentences. So yeah, she did like a training, like these tips about writing, and specifically in English, because it's not so easy for people that are not English native speakers just to switch the language and be like fantastic. Like maybe I can do that in Italian, but in English I need like training, because it's another perspective.
So again, going back to Chris' comment, did she taught you just to the language style, or also the structure to give to the paper, or both?
No, she was not a scientist. She was like in English, I think, with a literature background. So it was really for this storytelling, or really on how to nicely write. So there was not about the methods. There was not that structure. It was just how to write a scientific paper in English. And then, yeah, there was also like the part in the oral training. So there was also another part where we tried to do like presentations. So she gave us like some topics, and you have to argue the pros. One group was the pros, the other cons, but scientifically. So there was this training. So how to sustain a thesis, I think. Yeah.
Serene.
So about the exercise, I have followed last year an online course with Coursera. It's also called How to Write a Scientific Paper. And it really gives you tips, what to do, what not to do. And it was also exposing the idea of storytelling inside the article. So I learned so much from this course. Of course, I don't remember everything now, but I have I have some supports that I have put in my drive, so I can read them from one time to another. And also, to succeed this course, you have to write an article. So I had to write. So not an article that you will submit, just an exercise. I had to write about my thesis that I didn't even finished yet, and I didn't have the results yet, but I had to imagine what are the results that I can get. Yes, and I wrote it, and then I'm now writing my thesis, so I can just compare to my imagination. But yeah, I agree with mostly what you have said. Maybe something that Leah said is about that the article should be readable by everyone. Maybe I would say the introduction summary could be read by everyone, but maybe sometimes the articles are very specific. Maybe the topic is maybe sometimes it's difficult to make every article readable and understandable by everyone. I would say summary or introduction should. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I would say like the general outline should be understandable. Then of course you have like different layers, and then you cannot. This is why we need references and a background. Just like as you say, maybe the summary, the intro, like a general like idea, something like that.
I mean, also the method part should be readable from everyone, understandable from everyone. That's why I kind of like the style of some journals, as Chris was saying, where you have the introduction, then the results, because you have to summarize what you did in the methods just in a few lines before the results are soon, before the results are soon after the introduction. And you're forced to make it readable. Even if you use the fanciest method in the world, you still have to summarize it in clear words to make the flow go. So this is what I like. Then, of course, in the method part, you can put a mathematical equation that not everyone's gonna understand, but at least they know what you roughly did and what the matter is about.
So,
I was thinking about Valentina, and then you need like the supplementary materials to explain everything.
It's like 100 pages supplementary material. Who would do that?
No, maybe like also the supplementary materials have to be evaluated more.
Generally, that's a good statement. Yes.
No, because no, like it's not about my paper, but in general, like as we say, like if the main test should be readable, then if you then need to provide the details because it's difficult to summarize into lines all the methods, then maybe a strategy can be the supplementary. I don't know.
Well, aren't we then just shifting the problem from the main to the supplementary material?
So we have a problem here.
Like then, great. You have like, but then you could also like, okay, here's an idea. So some journals do that, for example, where they publish the normal scientific paper and then they publish a short version, like a one-pager that summarizes the paper. So that might be a better idea rather than shifting all the complexity into 100-page supplementary material that then hardly anyone is reading or understanding. Maybe we should just have a really nice one-page poster summary of each publication.
Yeah, I love when they do that. Like also for like when I was reading about genetics that I'm starting to read, I always read the short version that sometimes is written maybe by also a different author, like not a commentary, but like a way, more like a more readable version of the main text. I love when they do that. That could be like just like an abstract, but more detailed, like one page, like to make it clear the statement. Maybe the abstract sometimes is too small. Maybe you need like more lines. Yeah.
Then one could argue if we actually implement storytelling frameworks, narrative frameworks into our writing, then there is no need to have an extra explanatory note for each paper. Just playing devil's advocate here, just bouncing out ideas.
And it's tricky. Everywhere. Yeah, we should like read more. We should read this article to understand how to do it.
So one thing I really liked about the commentary, as I said, is that they don't just tell you you're doing it wrong, you should do better, but they actually give you examples on how to do it. So I was going to use that scaffold and sit down and actually try to see if I can follow the flow of a narrative framework and actually match it with the scientific story that I want to tell, and see how far I get.
What about the title? Why the title of the comment?
Oh, because everyone should read this in science.
This is what they say.
That's the punchline as far as
I
I
also like the title, because the title is really like catching a short, like more like in this article style, and usually, our titles are convoluted. I like this way to simplify things, but of course, then you also need details, as Céline was arguing. So you have to be like in both ways, because it's a scientific thing, so you have to prove it.
I think that's the art of writing.
Yeah.
Make it simplistic and understandable, yet cover or capture the complexity of it. That's where writing becomes an art rather than something we just do to transform the information. I wanted to also talk about another thing they mentioned towards the end of the comment, and that is using reward for people who actually manage to turn around their writing and make it more understandable, in terms of when you're hiring or promotions, as a motivation to make people or scientists make an effort. And I was wondering what you think about that aspect.
Yeah, more rewards for scientists in everything. That motivates us. It's a good strategy.
Yeah, I agree. We are asked to be too many people. Too many. We are asked to be writers. We have to be graphical designers, scientists, public oral speech givers, and it's just too many things, too many different people we have to be. So reward. It's really much appreciated.
That's true. On the reward, well, also, first, reviews are very helpful, I think, to learn how to write properly, because you see what you shouldn't do. But the problem is that reviewing is a very time-consuming process, and it's not paid, and it's not even really considered our job. So like if you do that during your hours, your boss can say, no, you should focus on the project. So you do that on your leisure time. Yes, of course, I will read papers on my leisure. So there is that. I think that's a problem. But also writing. So I was reading this book. It's How to Write a Lot. It's actually a pretty good book. It's pretty short. By Paul Silva, and he says that scientists don't really consider writing. I mean, a lot of scientists don't consider writing as part of their main job, so they do that on their extra hours. But that's bad. That's bad for writing as well, because if you had your whole day of research and then you try writing, it's going to be bad. I mean, not everybody can have a good writing after a full day of work. So I think we have to work on that too. So integrate writing as part of our job, not something you do on your extra time.
But the writing doesn't necessarily have to be bad just because you do it out of hours. It's just bad that you have to do it out of hours.
But it's bad because you do it out of hours. I'm not saying that it's necessarily bad, but if it was considered as part of your work, like in the morning, you're like oh, that's part of what I should do today, not something I will do once I finished everything else. It just shouldn't be a hierarchy between doing research and writing. Writing shouldn't be at the bottom, because that's super important. That's how we are validated as researchers. So it's super duper important, and it should be considered as important in our everyday work.
But that's the question. Are we actually evaluated on our writing, or are we evaluated on the output that we generate, regardless?
Yeah, but the output
writing?
is the written article.
Yeah,
so I'm not saying on the style of the writing, like if the writing is good, but we have to write what we did. So of course it's not going to be super. Well, if you're doing that when you have a little bit of time, you can't really spend time to learn storytelling and these things, because it's not, you don't have time to do it.
No, I totally agree with Chris. Yeah. That you need the time for writing and also for reading, as you were saying, because also for the revision. Because if I do that, like, so I'm a person, maybe other people have like flexible hours, so they can do also like later. I'm a person who like to have like a working day. So you start in the morning, and then like at 6, like I work all day. So my brain is done. And if I have to do that after 6, then of course I'm not focused anymore. So maybe this is what Chris maybe do that as me. So like, and I would like to do that just before, like at 4 or 3, I don't know. But sometimes you don't have time, because you are discussing with colleagues other things about the methods, the project. So they say, no, you have to focus on the project. And then you do that, or in the weekend where you actually don't want to do that, or in the evening where you rather do something else. And then of course there's not a balance. So I think that you should be entitled to say, I'm reading this paper because I have to cite it, or I'm writing this part because yeah, that would be like something that is not like no, you have to focus on the project. Yeah, it's something that is your work.
I don't think it's just a matter of focus that you put on the writing part. It's a matter of importance you give it to it, because if it's something that you do on the weekend, even though you're super productive on the weekend, because some of us can be, you still don't consider it as your main job, which is. It is. I mean, it's your main job, writing. So it's a matter of importance you give it to it. So if it's marginal, you just say blah blah blah. I did this, I did that, without putting passion to it.
Yeah, that should be on the basis.
But if you delegate to your free time, you're not giving it importance. You're not connecting the writing part to the scientific part, which is your job. And writing, it's the main part of your job.
But maybe I would say it's not only a matter of time, it's also a matter of competency. So maybe introducing it to your time job, as Chris said, but also introducing it in our studies. For example, not just learning how to write a scientific paper in general, how to write an article, but also how to write. So writing maybe should also be learned as something different, like writing in general, how we write, how we make our style readable, how we make something attractive, etc. And then trying to apply this to research and having also courses on writing scientific paper, making research, etc. I think this will be also complementary. With what Chris has said, I partly agree. It's true that it would help, but also it does not mean that only that the reasons that we are writing in our extra time, the bad writing, are due to researchers writing in their extra time. Maybe this cause and consequence, I don't really agree on it. Maybe it's a problem of competency as well. But then, and having writing as your role in your fiche de poste in your work, it's also very important in order to allow people to give it its importance and to give it its time that it needs.
I agree that it would be we also need more competence, more skills in writing. Yes, maybe so. I agree that not everything is because we are not writing on our main working time. That's not why some papers are badly written. It's definitely because we don't have a lot of I mean, I'm pretty sure that I didn't have a single thing about writing. I had to go to some course, but it was not part of my main education, or writing was not part of it. So yeah, we definitely need that. But at the same time, even I'm pretty sure that with the same skills, if you're writing during the day, when it's considered your actual job, compared to writing in the weekend, with the same competence, I think the writing will be different.
I think that depends on the person, to be honest. So I'm someone who likes to write at night, which is a terrible, terrible work-life balance. But in order for me to write, I need to have peace and quiet around me. And that tends to be at nighttime.
Yeah, that's good. But so you could have a flexible time. So like, because you're still doing your 7+ hours during the day, and then you're doing that on your extra time. But what should be the norm should be, I need to write today, but I'm gonna stop a little bit earlier and resume my work of writing later when it's quiet. That should be, I think, like the norm.
So maybe it's also difficult how to teach to do that, because people have different creativity or writing balance, I guess. So for example, when I was writing my first grant, surprisingly, also for me, the weekend was a good moment, because I was not pressured about the project during the week. That it was productive, but then it's not sustainable, because I cannot do that forever, because I will die. I can do that like for 2 months, but then it's like too much. So it's I think maybe what Chris, you should have like a balance between work and your free time. Then if you do that on the week, like, then it's part of our job that we have this kind of flexibility. But you have to find your balance, otherwise you burn out if you increase like all this writing where you have time and when you're quiet. It's not, for me, it's not okay at that end. You can do it for a moment, like for a period, but not like as a stable working routine.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But maybe one could argue, if we learned the tools on how to write early on, let's say PhDs need to do about 30 hours of transferable skills, why not dedicate maybe even 15 of these hours to how to write a paper, a thesis, a grant, anything scientifically, how to write it. And you learn the tools early on, and then it's just a matter of practicing. And maybe at that point, you feel more comfortable with the writing process. You have a better scaffold of how to write a paper. And maybe that could actually bring it into your day job, because you're more efficient, you enjoy the process more, and you're more like at ease with writing, I guess. So yeah, having the tools, I guess, is a key element here.
Yeah, I think we need all that. That's the problem.
We need it all.
Yeah, no, the tools are important, but yes, it's maybe discuss also the time. During my PhD, I really wanted to do like English course. With this course for writing was mandatory, so you have to do it, but you always have the feeling that you're wasting time and people are asking you something else. And like my English course, I had to drop it because I couldn't follow the acquisitions then. So yeah. It's important that you maybe make these things mandatory, so it's not a choice, something that you should do, like maybe.
But then even if things are mandatory, it eats into your time again, and it has to be something that's useful. So I did a mandatory grant writing workshop many years ago, and I was super excited about it. It's like, yes, finally I learned how to write grants officially rather than just do the thing I do and hope it works. But actually I was quite disappointed by the workshop because it was just a matter of everyone bring whatever they wrote and everyone else reads it and they give you feedback. And the rule was they had to give you 3 good things and 3 bad things, which is a great exercise also to find the good things in writing because we're so highly trained at finding the bad things. So that's a great exercise, but it helped more with shaping the content rather than how to actually sell the story and tell the story of why this is important, why it has to be done now, why it has to be done this way, at least in my opinion. So yeah, just making it mandatory is not going to solve the problem. We have to find the right tools that work for many people. And I think storytelling, we all love stories. We grow up with stories. We know the narrative framework. We may not be able to apply it per se, but we know how a story works, and we know the stories that we like and what makes a good story and a bad story from experience. So that might actually be a nice toolbox that we can bring into the sciences and apply it a bit better.
Now with Elena, we are waiting for a workshop from Stephanie how to write.
No. I'm no expert. But these guys are.
Maybe a workshop from Paula.
Paula is the one.
Yeah. An online workshop or CNS seminar.
No, Paula and the Story Collider team is what we should ask for this. Great. In terms of just briefly, we have like 10 minutes left. I'm super excited. We actually had such a long discussion about it, and it was very interesting. But because that question comes up a lot in my teaching and with colleagues, is about tools you use to write. So, for example, there is this myth, I guess, that you should be writing 300 words a day. Which initially, when I heard about it many years ago, I was like, that's a lot of words a day. Whereas now that's the minimum I would write per day, just because I have to at this point. But also, if you write 300 words a day by the end of the week, that's a solid amount of writing already. So that's one strategy people use. Personally, I really like using Grammarly as well, because they not only correct your writing, but they also have this blog where they tell you how to write better. And a lot of the feedback is kind of semi-tailored to your own writing mistakes. So that I found greatly helpful. But I was wondering if you had any strategies, tools, anything you use for writing.
I use Grammarly too, and it's a great tool. The problem is when you have to pay for it with your own money when it's a work tool. I don't think that's a very good thing, but
that's where writing a good grant comes in.
Yeah.
So, for me, I don't monitor many words because I don't like for me, like writing, there's this creativity part. So I'm really like methods for some things, for others, I don't like to monitor things, but it's my issue sometimes is that I need to rewrite. So like I write the first time and it's maybe to make my ideas what I have to write. So I make like a draft that is not really okay. And then I have to reread it and rewrite it because I understood what I want to say, what I want to tell. And so this is much longer because maybe I don't have the tools to just, I'm acquiring now. So now it's became easier to just write a first good draft. And one suggestion that my supervisor gave me is to do an outline before, because so this process is more structured from the beginning. It's not just you try and doesn't work and then you redo it. So this like, have like a strategy. Like or then all these tools that we were talking about, the formation, they give you this tool to start. It's just when you are trying to do a job, you do not just try, you know how start, and so you know I have to go there, you have to write this, then it's so yeah, the formation can save time because you don't just try and redo it as I was doing by myself. But maybe it's my bad strategy.
Well, that's also something they suggest in the article implicitly.
Okay.
Because if you sit down and you think about what's the location and the time, what's the protagonist of the story, then you, by definition, have to build that scaffold of the different parts of the story and how to link it up. So, yeah. But I guess so I'm writing the same way. You just jot down ideas, you put the scaffold down, and then you come back and rewrite it. And the thing or the trick that does for me is to take away that empty page syndrome. Do you know, when you sit there and you look at the empty page and you're like, I gotta write a full article, but I don't know where to start. And by having a scaffold and just putting down ideas and then kind of writing around the ideas, and then you try to link one idea to the next, you're kind of building that fabric of a paper, and you get rid of that empty white page that's just staring back at you, telling you, I should be a full article, and you just don't know where to start. So yeah, going back over your writing, I think is a good way of doing it. At least it works for me.
About the structure, I tried, so I'm still not super good with it, but I tried to use the mind maps. And I think it makes a lot of sense in, especially in science. So the mind maps is basically a graph of like you have nodes, connections, and depending on the tool you're using, you can add things on the connections or more things on the nodes and stuff. Right now I'm using MindMeister, and well, I will have to write a paper soon, so I think I will try to use the mind maps, because on top of the structure, introduction, method, etc., you can also have a structure of this idea leads to this idea leads to this idea, and so that's a very visual way to organize the ideas, and I think it might help quite a bit to then fill up your structure. If you have your structure visually, and you can also increase it. So at the beginning, you will have a rough outline of your structure, and then you can add nodes in the middle and connect them to other subnodes. And you can also have notes on, you can also link it to the papers, like, oh, this idea, I want to explain it with this paper, like especially in the introduction introduction and discussion makes a lot of sense. You link your idea to the paper, and you don't have to write the paragraph straight away, but you can just note your idea in your tool, and then fill up all the the flesh of the article once you have the structure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna have a look on that.
Yeah, very interesting.
I shared the link on the chat.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
thank you.
they are, so this one, you have a free version and a subscription one. You can find free open source tools as well. They might not have as many features, and it also depends on the features you think will be useful to you or not.
Yeah, actually, I use Mindmap to read articles or to read courses because it helps summarize everything, and it's also a representation of our mind. You have a central idea and you make links, so it's like something ready to memorize. So yeah, maybe it would be interesting to use it for writing. But actually, it changed my life to use Mindmap because I had problems with memorizing courses, etc. And then when I started using it, it helped me a lot in my studies. So here I will take this advice to use it. Maybe.
Yeah, it's a very intuitive way to put down your ideas on not paper, but yeah, it feels natural. Well, because I guess our ideas in our brains are just connections, so it makes sense to have an organization like that instead of just a linear structure.
Great. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much. Very exciting to hear about all the tools and different ways you do your writing. I'm looking forward to read a lot more of your papers coming out soon. And as I said, or as the authors say, go and read this article. Very inspiring and helpful indeed. And thank you for joining us this morning. Just to let you know, this week on Thursday, we have a CNS talk on COVID and the brain with two clinical experts who will tell us from the front lines. So do join us on Thursday, 4 p.m. Paris time. And for the rest of you, thanks for coming today. Have an exciting week in science, and we shall see you next Monday. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.